say to the Walton family, the wealthiest family in America, get off of welfare, start paying your workers a living wage. You guys are getting me wrapped up here. It's going to be a long afternoon. We're getting to work on the sweat here, and I get going. All right, but it's not just wealth. I want you to think about this as well. We are, hard to believe, this is true, at this particular moment today, we are the wealthiest country in the history of the world. But, did anybody in America knows that? They don't know that. Why don't they know that? They don't know it because almost all of the new wealth and income is going to the top 1%. You're not thinking about this country being the wealthiest country in the world when you're working 2 or 3 jobs trying to bring in enough money to take care of your family. Here's the reality with regard to income. We got millions of people who are working longer hours for lower wages. We have people working 2 or 3 jobs. We got mom working, we got dad working, we got the kids working. We have marriages that are stressed out because people are working so hard. We have kids who do not get the attention they need from mom and dad because mom and dad are working so hard. Yet, after all of that hard work, here's something else I want everybody here to know. Japanese are very hard-working people. We work longer hours than any people in the industrialized world, including the Japanese. So our people are working incredible hours, and yet it ends up that 58% of all new income generated today. Think about it. All the people, everybody here working hard, 58% of all new income goes to the top 1%. So, are you guys ready for a radical idea? I knew you would be. And that is why we are going to create an economy that works for working families, not just the 1%. And that means that we are going to ask the wealthiest people in this country to start paying their fair share of taxes. That means that we understand that a $7.25 an hour federal minimum wage is a starvation wage. We are going to raise the minimum wage to a living wage, $15 an hour. And I would hope that every man in this arena this afternoon will stand with the women in the fight for pay equity. I want to say something else about the economy. When we talk about unemployment, what you usually see once a month on the front pages of the papers are official unemployment, which is now nationally about 5%. 5%. Anybody here believe that real unemployment in America is 5%? Smart group, you're right. Because there's another report that you don't see so much that comes out, which looks at people unemployed and people who have given up looking for work and people who are working part-time when they want to work full-time. Add that number together, it is close to 10%. Okay? That's a lot of people unemployed or underemployed. And now let me tell you something else, which is a national tragedy that you never hear about. Zero. Almost no discussion. And that is the tragedy of youth unemployment in this country. I asked some economists to do a study for me a while back. And I said, tell me, kid graduates high school, doesn't drop out. Some kids drop out. Kids graduate high school between 17 and 20. What is real unemployment? This is what they say. If the kids are white, 33%. Kids are Latino, 36%. Kids are African American, 51% unemployed right now. Now, if you think that that tragedy, and I want you to think about it for a minute, put yourself in the shoes of a kid, 18, 19, graduated high school, trying to get his feet on the ground, trying to become independent, trying to become adult, trying to make a few bucks, can't do it. Year after year, you can't get a job. Now, if anyone thinks there is not a correlation between that tragedy and another American tragedy, and that is that we have more people in jail, 2.2 million Americans than any other country on earth. If you don't see the connection between outrageously high unemployment rates for young people and the number of people in jail, you're missing an important point. So are you ready for radical idea number 2? What together we are going to do is invest in jobs and education for our young people, not jails and incarceration. The other thing that we are going to do is when unemployment is so high, we are going to rebuild our crumbling infrastructure. It's our roads, our bridges. Now, all of you, I think, are aware of the unspeakable tragedy taking place in Flint, Michigan today with their water system. I was in Detroit a week or so ago, and I talked to some people from Flint. I don't even want to tell you what they told me because it is so horrific what is happening to the children that it was literally hard for me to imagine that I was hearing people in the United States of America talking about what's going on in terms of the destruction of that city. But it is not just Flint, Michigan. All over this country, we have major infrastructural problems with water, with transportation, with roads, bridges, etc. We can create 13 million good-paying jobs, putting our people to work, rebuilding our crumbling infrastructure. Say, well, Bernie, you're going to invest $1 trillion in roads and bridges and water systems. That's a lot of money. Where are you going to get the money? I'll tell you where we're going to get the money. Right now, this is how crazy this rigged economy is. Right now, you have corporations making billions of dollars a year in profit, stashing their money in the Cayman Islands, Bermuda, and in other tax havens. And in a given year, after making billions in profit, they pay zero in federal taxes. Well, under my administration, they're going to start paying taxes. We're going to use that money to rebuild our crumbling infrastructure, and we're going to put our people back to work. Now, in this campaign, I have talked about things that are unpleasant in America because I believe that we don't go forward unless we deal with reality. What I've talked about is a corrupt campaign finance system in which billionaires, literally billionaires, are buying elections. Now, my opponent has a super PAC receiving millions and millions of dollars from Wall Street. Now that's fine, but I made a decision. I don't want Wall Street money. I don't believe in Wall Street money. We have done it in a way that is revolutionizing campaign financing in America. What people have always said, what the media says, and what the experts say is, look, the only way you can raise money is go begging billionaires for money. It's the only way you can compete. I chose not to do that. And this is what we did. Listen to this, because this is really unbelievable. I never in a million years would have thought we could have accomplished this. In the last 9.5 months since we've been in this race, we have received over 4 million individual campaign contributions. From working people, middle class people, from people trying to make it on Social Security. Do you know what the average campaign contribution is? It is $27. I'm not indebted to Wall Street. I'm not indebted to the billionaires. I am indebted to those folks who made a $27. Now I want to tell you a story, if I might, a brief story, which kind of encompasses much of what I've been talking about in this campaign, about a corrupt campaign finance system, about a rigged economy, and about a broken criminal justice system. Here's the story. About a month ago, Goldman Sachs, you all know Goldman Sachs? Obviously you know Goldman Sachs. Goldman Sachs is one of the large financial institutions on Wall Street. Goldman Sachs, about a month ago, reached an agreement with the federal government. They paid $5 billion as part of a settlement package. Why did they pay $5 billion? They paid $5 billion, and by the way, other banks have even paid more. They paid $5 billion because they were selling worthless packages of subprime mortgage loans, which, as all of you know, was one of the causes for the Great Recession that destroyed the lives of millions of Americans. Okay. All right, point number one. All right, this is the point. Short story. Stay with me. All right. Point number one, they paid $5 billion in settlement. Point number two, this is what political power is about. The last 20, 25 years, this fraudulent financial institution has, through the revolving door, taken people from their company, put them onto the Secretary of Treasury. 2 Secretaries of Treasury, one Democrat administration, one Republican, came directly from Goldman Sachs, and a lot of other high-ranking officials in government came directly from Goldman Sachs. You go from Wall Street to government, you do the bidding of Wall Street, and then you go back to Wall Street, okay? That's called the revolving door. 3, Goldman Sachs, along with other Wall Street financial institutions, pours millions of dollars in campaign contributions and speakers' fees into the political process. So what they are doing is supporting the candidates they want to support. Point number 4, and this is maybe the point that really upsets the American people the most. Today in Virginia, today in Vermont, some kid or adult gets caught with marijuana. That person will have a police record which will stay with him or her for their entire lives, which is no laughing matter, because you go out looking for a job and your employer asks you, do you have a criminal record? They say, well, yeah, I got picked up with marijuana. It stays with you for your entire life. And by the way, this becomes a racial issue as well. Because it turns out that what studies show is the black community and the white community both smoke marijuana at about equal levels. 4 times, I don't know if that's something to cheer for or not. But the point to be made is that if you are black, you are 4 times more likely to get arrested for marijuana than if you are white. So that raises a whole other issue. A whole very important issue. I'll get to that in a minute. But right now, here's the story. You get picked up today for marijuana, you got a police record. But if you are an executive on Wall Street, whose illegal behavior helped destroy the American economy, created a situation in which millions of people lost their jobs, their homes, and their life savings. You don't get a police record, you get a compensation increasing your salary. That is a broken criminal justice system, and together we are going to restore justice to the criminal justice system. While I'm on the issue of criminal justice, let me just say this. Number one, talking about marijuana. Right now, in the Federal Controlled Substance Act, the rules which define drugs in America, the dangerous drugs, it turns out, amazingly enough, it's pretty crazy, is that marijuana is listed as a Schedule I drug alongside of heroin. Now we can argue, and there's a lot of studies going on about the pluses and minuses of marijuana, but nobody sensible thinks that marijuana equates or is the same as heroin, which all of you know is a killer drug. Now what's happened, when we talk about criminal justice, over the last 30 years, millions of Americans have police records because of possession of marijuana. In my view, that's wrong, and in my view, we should take marijuana out of the Federal Controlled Substance Act. Now, states in our country, when we have a federalism system, states can legalize or not. That's their jurisdiction. But I don't think the federal government should be about criminalizing possession of marijuana. Look, everybody here knows on another issue, and again, this is kind of common sense, because everybody agrees. If we are going to compete in a highly competitive global economy, if the young people here are going to have decent paying jobs, we need the best educated workforce in the world, correct? Truth is, 30, 40 years ago, we did have the best educated workforce in the world. Truth is, today, we do not. Truth is that today, there are hundreds of thousands of young people, some in Virginia, some in Vermont, all over this country, who have the ability, who have the qualifications to get a college degree, but they're not able to, for one reason, their families lack the funds. When we talk about public education, I want you to think about this. 100 years ago, people said public education is very important. It is. Great people helped make free public schools in America. And what they said is, look, yeah, I'm working class, I'm low income, but I want my kid to be able to get an education, not work in a factory, not work in a farm. That was a huge step forward. But the world has changed. And what a high school degree was worth 50 years ago is pretty much what a college degree is worth today. Okay? If you want to go out and get a job, by and large, there are exceptions, you need higher education. Or you need post-high school training. You want to become an electrician, you want to become a sheet metal worker, whatever it may be. That is why I believe that in the year 2016, when we talk about public education, we've got to be talking about making public colleges and universities tuition free. The other half of the equation is the absurdity that in America we got millions of people who are struggling and suffocating under outrageous student debt. Anybody here with student debt? Now I want you to think about it. Everybody wants and believes that education is a good thing. We want you to get all of the education that you can get. And yet we are punishing severely millions of people for the crime of getting an education. We're talking about people 30,000 in debt, 50, 100, talk to a young woman who's a doctor, $300,000, dentist, $400,000 in debt. That is crazy stuff. And that is why our legislation will allow people with student debt to refinance their loans at the lowest interest rates they can find. Now, I'm a member of the Senate Environmental Committee and the Senate Energy Committee. I have talked to scientists all over the world. And let me tell you what my Republican colleagues will not tell you. And that is that climate change is real. Climate change is caused by human activity. Climate change is already causing devastating problems in our country and around the world. I don't know if some of you just saw the article that appeared the other day, a study. Sea levels are rising at the fastest rate in thousands of years. If we don't get our act together, coastal communities are going to be underwater. We're looking at more drought, more extreme weather disturbances, more acidification of the ocean. We're looking at international conflict because people around the world are going to be fighting for water, fighting for land to grow their crops. We have a moral responsibility to leave this planet in a way that is healthy and habitable for our kids and future generations. As president, I will take on the fossil fuel industry. We will transform our energy system, create millions of jobs, moving away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency and sustainability. Throughout this campaign, I have been criticized for thinking so big. Wall Street Journal has 1 million articles. How are you going to do this and how are you going to do that? Too big, too big, too big. I don't agree. Let me give you one example. And they criticize it for all that they want. All over the world. You go to the United Kingdom, you go to France, you go to Germany, you go to Holland, you go to Scandinavia, you go to Canada, you go to every major country on earth, and you know what they all say? They say that all of their people, all, A-L-L, all of their people are entitled to health care as a right. Not some of their people, not large deductibles, not a country in which we're paying the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs, but all of their people are entitled to comprehensive health care rights. So, let me make it crystal clear to my opponents. Opponents, listen to me. Yes, I believe that health care is a right of all people, not a privilege. And our Medicare for All single-payer program will, in fact, lower health care costs by $5,000 for a middle-class family, and that's what we've got to do. Brothers and sisters, what the big money interests believe is that so many of our people are demoralized. So many of our young people, I read these articles every day, oh, young people, they're not going to get involved in the political process. They're too busy partying or doing whatever. But this is what I want to say. I want to say to everybody here, young or old. And this is what I want to say. If you don't participate in the political process, you don't stand up for your rights, I guarantee 100% that there are people out there, billionaires and their lobbyists and the campaign donors, who pray. They get down on their hands and their knees and they pray that you don't vote, you won't get involved. Because they know if you don't get involved, the big money interests will win out all of the time. They are not worried about workers making $10 an hour. They're not worried about women making 79 cents on the dollar compared to men. They're not worried about 29 million Americans not having health insurance. They're not worried about African American kids being picked up by the police illegally. They're not worried about Latinos who are living in fear and need a path to citizenship. They're not worried about seniors trying to make it on $11,000 to $12,000. That is not their worry. They're worried about more tax breaks for billionaires. They're worried about more trade policies that will shut down factories in America and move to China so they can make more money. The only way we take them on is when we do not allow the Trumps of the world to divide us up. Demagogues in this country, what you played off of is black against white, male against female, gay against straight, people born in this country against people who have immigrated to this country. We are not going to fall for that. We are not going to allow them to divide us up. We're going to stand together. We are going to create a government that represents us all. Virginia, if people come out to vote, please come out to